speaking to the board. I was speaking as the the Assistant Chief of Harbor Fire and the Fire Chief for Winchuck Fire. Today I am still the Fire Chief for Winchuck Fire, and now I'm the Interim Fire Chief at Harbor Fire. But I'm here to just say on behalf of Winchuck Fire Department, Harbor Fire Department, and Coos Forest Protective Association, we'd like to thank you, Board of Commissioners, for allowing us this time to give this presentation of one of our recent wildland fire trainings. In June of 2024, both Winchuck Fire and Harbor Fire districts were applied for, and we were each awarded $35,000 for wildland season staffing from the Oregon State Fire Marshal. The purpose of this grant was to provide agencies with funds to hire resources or additional resources for wildland fire preparedness, prevention, and suppression during the wildland season of June through October. This resources are meaning staffing and payroll administration, not equipment or materials or anything like that. Both fire districts were able to pay rotating teams of 2 firefighters for 10-hour shifts, 7 days a week, to patrol our districts, train and perform other necessary wildland activities. This is the 3rd year that Harbor Fire has been awarded the grant, and this is the 1st year that Winchuck Fire received the grant. This is also the first time Winchuck has ever had funds to pay firefighters. Harbor Fire recently completed their wildland season grant on September 27th, and Winchuck completed our wildland grant funds on October 15th. The 2 departments, along with Coos Forest Protection Association, worked together to provide support and training during these critical fire months. We feel it is important to show the dedication of our firefighters and how they are being trained. The wildland training was extremely hard work, and all firefighters showed up voluntarily and fully suited up. And they showed up because they care about the forests, their rural communities, and the residents who live in our districts. I would like to show a video showcasing one of these joint trainings. This is actually a video, a 3-minute video that was gleaned.
We are back to the meeting, and Natasha is going to start our fire training video now.
Tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Obviously incredibly hard work. Where was that done at?
This was up on Peavine Ridge Road.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were given access to 40 acres by one of the property owners.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how, Harbor Fire, and Winchuck, how are your volunteer numbers right now?
Well, with Harbor Fire, we have 10, and Winchuck, we have 11.
Okay.
Yes.
And if somebody wants to get involved, they want to volunteer, what's that process look like? Where do they get started? What would they do?
Visit the station, pick up an application, have a conversation with one of the officers or myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there minimum requirements, or is there anything specific you're looking for? Or
Well, they have to be 18 years old for
Okay.
insurance and a valid Oregon driver's license if they want to drive. Yeah.
perfect. I get that question sometimes, so
Yeah.
hopefully we get those numbers up a little bit.
It would be good. Yeah. We're actually bringing on, which is a surprise for the Winchuck area. We're bringing on some younger firefighters out there,
That's awesome.
and same with Harbor. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
No, well done.
Well, thank you.
for that.
Appreciate that.
I have one quick question. So,
Okay.
so did you coordinate between the two districts with it sounds like you had 4 guys total, the additional staff?
Well, actually, the way it worked out in Winchuck, because of the younger firefighters and some of the Harbor firefighters, they still have jobs.
Yeah.
So we would rotate. I would hire
Oh, okay.
Harbor Fire, Harbor would hire some
So your
Winchuck.
volunteers got paid, so that's.
They
okay,
did,
okay,
yes.
okay.
For Wildland, they got paid.
Okay, good.
There was 2 people per truck per day for 10 hours a day. Yeah, it was good. Winchuck's never had paid staff before. Even the chief positioners volunteer. Harbor Fire is a little different. They have other grants that they're working off of as well to have paid firefighters on duty. Yeah.
All right.
So, just so this training, you probably saw when firefighters are out cutting fire lines, they are not bunched up, and you probably saw parts of the video where they were like right next to each other. It's pretty dangerous when you're swinging a tool. So we would stop the training, circle them up, you saw circles, and explain, hey, you need to maintain a certain distance apart. They were working uphill, made it even harder. You never cut a fire line downhill because fire doesn't burn downhill, fire burns uphill. And so as the training, we taught them a lot of different things about that, and it was very good. I just want to thank you for allowing this presentation. I did bring my firefighter wife Cindy along, and my executive secretary or assistant Kathleen as well. But thank you. We just want to thank you also for your continued support of our small fire districts in southern Curry County.
We appreciate you, Chief. We appreciate all you guys. Thank you. You're always welcome here, for sure.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so everybody knows that, thanks guys. Everybody knows we took a little bit of break because of some technical difficulties. I'm sure this will be viewed later. I've asked Natasha to get online and make a social media post and post on our website. We are experiencing difficulties, so hopefully the Facebook crowd will be kind to us and not think we're hiding something. We actually had some IT work done that probably conflicted with our current system, so.
There was also some CPR trainings going on in here that
Yeah.
they were showing videos, and so something may have just come unplugged, I don't know.
Anyway. All right, we are back to the agenda, and next up is general public comments, and first up is Michelle Martin.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Martin, and I'm here to talk about Commissioner Jay Trost's letter. I'm deeply concerned regarding the press release that Jay Trost sent out on 9/20/2024 regarding public safety information. There's so much in that letter that was micromanaging and just plain misinformation. I only have 3 minutes, so I picked out a couple of key issues. I will start with Commissioner Trost stating that SAR was denied on 8/18/24, and in his letter he said, was a question, what are the reasons the Sheriff's Office denied response for search and rescue request on August 18th when SAR is fully funded? Well, I have the CAD right here, and SAR was never requested, and I know that Commissioner Alcorn asked if he had the CAD, and you said no, that he could read it. So have you read the CAD, Commissioner Alcorn?
I have.
Okay. Well, in this CAD, it says nothing about requesting SAR, and so the harbor, let's see. I would like to clarify that SAR was not denied. This situation was handled by Brookings Fire Department and Brookings PD. They have done these kind of rescues and are very well trained and experienced. SAR was not needed or requested. And like I said, I had the CAD in my hand. Commissioner Trost and Commissioner Herzog is not here to answer the question, but you've just stated that you read the CAD, so maybe you can go back and review that. Now on to Sheriff John Ward. You're writing that is not attending your meetings upon request as you per your letter stating the OR status. Okay. Due to the ongoing state bar complaint against County Counsel Ted Fitzgerald, Sheriff Ward is not a participant in the meetings until this matter is resolved. He has taken steps to hire legal representation and is currently seeking advice from them. It is essential to recognize that he depends on proper legal guidance to efficiently carry out his duties. Insisting on attendance without considering these circumstances may heighten and misleading tensions within our community. And this is what's happening, as you well know and understand. Now, Commissioner Trost, to end this letter by making your comment stating that you feel much of this is being driven by ego and fueled by outside influences, you're falsely making baseless accusations and directing unjust scrutiny towards a well-appreciated sheriff and a group of concerned residents called Citizens for Curry Justice, whose purpose is in supporting our sheriff. Here is some information about us. Citizens rally in support of John Ward amid unwarranted attacks by our county commissioners. In a time when law enforcement integrity is more critical than ever, a group of concerned residents, Citizens for Curry Justice, has formed to support Curry County Sheriff John Ward. Sheriff Ward is a trusted figure who has served the community for 33 years and now facing unjust scrutiny and baseless accusations from the Curry County Board of Commissioners and their council. We stand with Sheriff Ward and reject these unwarranted attacks that jeopardize public safety and well-being of Curry County residents. We call on all Curry County residents to stand with support of Sheriff Ward. Don't be swayed by misinformation and rumors. Get involved and advocate for your right to a strong, effective law enforcement for public safety led by Sheriff John Ward. Then I also wanted to add here, according to the district attorney, the sheriff's department is responsible for the highest number of criminal offense referrals to the district attorney's office. According to the district attorney, between June 2023 and May 2024, the following number of criminal referrals were received by the district attorney's office. Curry County Sheriff's Department was 439. Gold Beach Police Department was 177. Brookings Police Department was 375. Port Orford Police Department was 90. Oregon State Police was 110. Despite knowing this, the BOC continues to primarily cut the resources in the Sheriff's Office, Civil and Patrol Departments. And this absolutely makes no sense to me at all or anyone else in our communities. Thank you.
Next up is Georgia Cockerham. Good job.
My name is Georgia Cockerham. I live in Brookings. I'm a retired, self-employed financial advisor. Prior to opening my business, I worked on a contract basis for the federal government during the 1980 savings and loan debacle. I was placed in several failed savings and loans where I worked with outside counsel on outstanding legal matters, oversaw the sale and management of all foreclosed property, and constructed loan workout agreements for delinquent borrowers, allowing them to repay the bank while retaining ownership to their properties. I'm currently an author with 9 published books. I'm here today to address one of the 3 methods used to determine what level of safety in this county the commissioners agreed was adequate, resulting in their arbitrary decision on the amount of funding they would make available for the sheriff's office. Although without any evidence of executive level education, training, or experience, Mr. Alcorn represented himself as having expertise sufficient to produce 50 law enforcement related questions for the sheriff, all for the purpose of creating a metrics. Mr. Alcorn read through the 50 questions at the May 31st meeting. At that meeting, he also read through the answers provided by Sheriff Ward. To be clear, both the questions and the sheriff's responses were read by Mr. Alcorn on May 31st. Mr. Alcorn asked the sheriff several times for clarification of answers provided, and either the sheriff or his captain explained. Mr. Alcorn then thanked the sheriff and stated the valuable information provided was all that was needed. On September 19, Mr. Trost stated that the Budget Committee had asked the sheriff for metrics and that the answers provided were incomplete. On October the 2nd, Mr. Hollinger went on and on about not having answers to the 50 questions. I checked, and Mr. Trost and Mr. Hollinger were both present for the May 31st meeting. The fact that you all may be unclear about those responses is understandable given that the Sheriff's Office is a very intricate organization. Few of the 50 questions asked could be answered with a single numeric response, something that all of you found very difficult to accept. You wanted a metric, a word that has been repeated constantly since introduced by Mr. Alcorn. In all that talk of metrics, a definition of the word has not been provided to the public. I offer it now. A metric is a single statistic that gives no meaningful insight. It needs to be compared with other known parameters and combined with relevant business metrics to build any meaningful understanding or interpretation. You may recall the occasion when Mr. Alcorn questioned the sheriff about the county's violent crime rate. The sheriff responded, "Compared to what?" illustrating the sheriff's understanding of the requirement for a parameter with which to compare the current number of calls in order to produce a meaningful metric. Throughout the course of these 5 months, you have all heard the sheriff, his captain, and lieutenant provide multiple explanations as to how the sheriff's office operates and why a number of variables prevent them from providing a single numeric answer to those questions requiring more than a verbal response. Once you understand this, you'll understand why demanding metrics is not currently the appropriate mode of measurement from which to learn how today's sheriff's office cuts will affect future crime in Curry County. Thank you.
And next up is Andre Day.
Thank you, Gary. I stand here today on behalf of the residents of this fine county on many pressing issues that demand immediate attention and accountability. First, why are all the leadership positions within this board men from Brookings? This lack of diversity is unacceptable and raises serious questions about representation and intent. Are you truly serving the interest of all county residents or just the elite few? Furthermore, we need to know, why are all the board recognized volunteers from Brookings? Who is paying for the awards presented at recent events? How can you justify these expenses when resources are limited? This is a critical misuse of time and money and cannot go unchallenged. What are your priorities? What concrete goals have you set for this county, and how do they reflect the real challenges we face? The sheriff was not a problem until you made him a problem. You campaigned on certain issues. What have you actually accomplished since taking office? Quit creating problems. Additionally, the last competent roadmaster this county had was just awarded a $500,000 settlement that was paid for from the road fund. Why wasn't the funding made as available to the sheriff's office as it was to cover the mistakes of the board? What is the cost to date for cyber attack, and how could that have been mitigated by ensuring encrypted systems? Millions were spent to make up for this neglect when it could have been invested in the sheriff's office. This pattern of instability in your leadership team is alarming and destructive to our community. $3 million of taxpayer dollars to cover the cyber attack, the roadmaster settlement, and compensation for the 4 of you. How much was the sheriff's office short this fiscal year again? County government has many layers of funding trust assurances like annual audits, budget committee, treasurer, budget officer, finance director, and recently an outsourced internal efficiencies consultant. What are the final outcomes of the consultant's work? How did administration best use that information to streamline taxpayers' dollars, and how is this unbudgeted work paid for? How much did this unreported work cost the taxpayers? Why are monthly budget and revenue expense reports no longer made available to the public? We are aware of unsavory actions taking place behind the scenes, actions that are being documented. This kind of behavior cannot be tolerated. We will not stand by while our community is jockeyed for personal gain. If you claim ignorance as to what those matters are, I'll be the first to bring them to light on record at the next public meeting. Lastly, we insist on full transparency regarding the law enforcement levy. Make public all materials and survey results that was used in its formation and the cost associated. This is not just a request, it's a demand for accountability and a process that affects us all. You guys missed the mark. Transparency is not subjective. Give the citizens the opportunity to do it right. We are not the opposition, and we are not the enemy. We expect your immediate attention on these concerns. And you all can answer these concerns on the back of this, and your names are on it. And I'll collect them November 6th meeting. And I hope you take the time to write something on the back of these for me. Thank you for your time.
Hey, Dalen, did you want to comment now, or did you want to wait till the agenda item?
I think I'll wait till the agenda item.
Till the item?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that'll conclude public comments. We'll move on in the agenda to consent agenda.
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
And I'll second it. So a motion and a second, all in favor?
Yes.
And yes, motion passes 2-0. So now we'll move into discussion action items. So first up is discussion of IGA with Gold Beach Police Department, and that is to use the opioid money to fund a school resource officer.
Let's see, I'm just getting to it right here. So we had met with Gold Beach, and they had put together some numbers. Let's see if, I'm just looking to see if do you guys have your packets with you?
Yeah.
Because they had submitted those numbers and given them to Keena, and I'm just looking through.
So I know the IGA and the agenda is in draft form.
Yeah.
They got, that went to them, when did it go to them, review a couple days ago?
What's IGA stand for again?
Intergovernmental agreement.
Thank you.
And so if you look at it, there's a incorporation of purpose. The above, let's say, is the purpose of the SRO, that's school resource officer, is to ensure a safe learning environment with the goal of reducing violence and the use of substances, including opioids in schools, as well as to provide resources for students, staff, parents, local law enforcement, and other government agencies that relate to schools in the county. And then the way that this is set is that basically you're gonna have a school resource officer in place here based out of Gold Beach, but working in the North County as well, and also with the ability to coordinate with the school resource officer that is already in place with City Brookings in South County. And that'll be during the school year. Then during the summer months, that SRO, school resource officer, will transition to act as a CRO, which is a community resource officer to work with the homeless and other issues that are currently plaguing the county at many levels, and establish relationships with individuals who are involved in those issues. let's see, what else can I tell you about this? Basically, it's gonna be one officer and, essentially.
My understanding, talking to Gold Beach, is they'll take an existing officer that's currently in service. They'll put that out to their officers and who might be interested, and they'll fill that position from within. So it'll be somebody that's already working there as a police officer. And this gets, then they would backfill that spot by hiring another officer, so that would increase their staffing level by one. And this this is another officer in our community, it's another officer in our school system, working with the current officer we have in South County, and providing a service to North County as well, not just as a SRO, but also in the CRO capacity. And it's again, we all know recently we saw what happened at the school in Gold Beach, and I know from my experience and actually working this position as an SRO, that officer in that school is just, it's a valuable resource. And you develop relationships with the kids. I can tell you that I did it, I had the opportunity to do it for one school year, and I was in some of the kids' weddings later on. They reached out to me when the kids were born, as they developed their own careers, they went in the military. You develop a relationship with those kids and can really impact and influence them. And this position in our schools is, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a game changer, especially in a small rural community like ours.
And this agreement would be a 5-year term as well.
And there would be enough opioid.
There's enough opioid money that's coming in to provide for this,
Okay.
based on, on what is, what's been budgeted, and also what's already been allocated for other uses by the sheriff's office
Yeah.
to date.
Now,
And I talked to Sergeant Rochelle at Gold Beach PD, who's supervising these efforts, and we had a discussion on the Measure E and how this would fall under its use. He's fully aware of that. I know that he's reached out to some other agencies, even in other states that are doing similar things. But this officer will also be coming in regularly to give us updates on their efforts, what's going on at school, what's going on in the community, that kind of thing. And they'll be very much tied into to that part as well.
If you have questions for Keena, I'm gonna have her, she's on the line right now.
Okay. And just for the public watching, because of our technical difficulties right now, Keena was going to zoom in, Keena, our finance director, but we have her on the phone. So if you hear someone talking on the phone, that is our finance director.
so so obviously, I think this is an appropriate use of these funds. I know that the one of the leading factors to increased what they call antisocial behavior is when you have antisocial relationships, and a lot of times these SROs are able to bridge the gap between what sometimes is preconceived ideas of authority and the relationships and bonds that are built with the SROs and the kids. And they also have a great pulse on what's happening within the schools. A lot of times, a pulse that maybe administration doesn't have.
Yeah.
So, the only thing that, one of the things I have a question is the termination portion. I think the termination portion, might need to be a longer runway.
Okay.
Because if we're talking about a person's position, a 30-day termination clause is a real quick scramble.
Yeah, you're probably right, especially with the agencies here. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think like a 90-day notice
Okay.
termination might be, a better runway if something happens. It gives them time to plan, you know, there's time to plan.
Yeah.
But,
And, you know, a lot of people, when they think school resource officer, they think about the high school, which obviously that's a big part, but this is all of our schools.
well, I can tell you that as a former juvenile director, we were in the junior highs,
Of course.
just maybe more than we were in the high schools,
Yeah.
at oftentimes.
And the other thing that I remember when I did this work was, you're also, the interaction you have with parents changes quite a bit too. And you're also a resource to those parents, because I remember having a lot of conversations about some preventative things when it was with gangs or drugs, et cetera. So, that parental resource is pretty strong, and I know it will be here too.
So regarding the runway for notice of termination, based on the way that our budgeting works, maybe it makes sense to do a 6-month notice, because the funds are committed annually, but we can modify reasonably with an interim halfway through the year, depending on what's going on. But I think that 6 months would allow Gold Beach to be able to plan and give some assurance to their employees.
For sure.
Okay.
So the only thing is, you know, do we need to make adjustments to any orders?
Yeah, I think we would need to modify our orders. You know, Gold Beach has it, it's in draft form. I think we'll hear back from them, they may have some.
We also, well, we have to modify, we've got to modify the orders that we've done regarding previous opioid settlement funding.
Right.
And so we can, I've got those here, we can take this into account and modify those.
Are we shooting for like January 1? Or are we shooting for something sooner?
Well, I think Sergeant Burchell was ready to go, sooner than later. That was my understanding. He didn't give me a firm date, but we had just gotten the IGA, so.
So we give them a firmed up IGA request, they take it to the city council approves and signs off. We come back, we do the final approval, sign off, and then we're able to start moving forward.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And then we'll make whatever modifications we need to make, and then we'll have a firm start date, and we'll be ready to go.
The other thing is, so I see in the billing portion, so will we be sending them payment on a quarterly basis? I would think it might, I mean, even if it's on a 6-month basis on the lies in conjunction with the termination clause might make sense too.
We can modify that to coordinate it, to make it fit with that, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Then they have the money and they don't have to worry about it, so.
And we need to make that fit within Keenan's, policies too.
Okay. All right, well,
But they're pretty excited about it. I think it's really gonna benefit, our community. I think there's a big need for it right now. And, again, we have that's another officer in the agency that when something happens in the middle of the night or at an alternate time, you've got another set of boots on the ground, you've got another person to call, so.
have we heard from Director Lang on how she would work with these folks as well? I know she works very intricately with the SRO and Brookings.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be
The
similar.
interaction would be similar. I have talked to Wendy about using this money in this capacity, and she strongly supports it.
Okay.
But yeah, she's got that, Wendy's killing it over there, and they've got a great relationship with the SRO of Brookings, and I would expect the same here for sure.
And then, obviously, transitioning into the CRO during the summer makes a lot of sense. Because that's when we have high, transient traffic that needs some guidance.
Agreed.
So, okay.
Agreed. So, anyway, I'm strongly in support of moving this forward and getting it done as soon as we can.
I am as well.
All right, any further discussion, Jeff? All right, then next up is B, which is approved allocation of opioid money Sheriff's Office, and we do have a public comment on that first. Dalen, would you like to comment now?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Dallin. I'm a local resident here in beautiful Gold Beach, Oregon. Opioid money, marijuana money, tax money, I'm just wondering.
The opioid money comes from an opioid settlement.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
No, right, that's
Yeah.
good enough. I didn't know if it was funds coming from marijuana, the mushroom business, or where it was coming from, some settlement. Okay, because I wasn't prepared for all this, but I do want to voice my opinion about monies for the sheriff's department, the police department, Gold Beach Police, and our sheriff's department. I walk around with a cane because I have a bunion, and it's a defense weapon. That's why we need more sheriffs on patrol, especially when you call 911 and stuff. You know, shouldn't get somebody, well, we'll send somebody in the morning or get an answer machine or something like that. It's getting extremely dangerous out on the streets of Gold Beach and Brookings. And so, I don't know how much the settlement was or who it went to, et cetera, but I know that if the streets get more and more dangerous, our tourists are gonna pass right through, especially Gold Beach and Brookings. And so somehow we're gonna have to start pulling people over a little bit more when they're speeding or their expired tags. Don't just give them a fix-it thing. Hey, here's a ticket, pay it. That'll bring in more money, won't it? Absolutely. We're gonna have to crack down on crime, or else it's just gonna increase, especially fentanyl is just flooding our country. We're gonna have to really start paying attention. I have 2 granddaughters in our Gold Beach High School, 7th grade and 9th grade. 7th and 8th is way too young, especially 7th grade to be mixed with high schoolers, in my opinion. They were on lockdown, the whole thing when that went down. I'm originally from Oxford, Michigan, and when that massacre happened in 2021. So that really hit home to me. And I will be talking with the school to see if they have a better policy for if this happens again. But it's getting more and more psychotic, neurotic, dangerous out on our streets. And if we don't have the Gold Beach and the Sheriff's Department at least visible, cruising and being on call and being there, then the criminals are gonna just keep doing it. It's gonna be becoming more and more a lawless society like the end time events. So, you know, I'm Marine Corps, so I know how to defend myself, and I'm teaching my grandkids. But we shouldn't have to live in fear and paranoia here. So I'm hoping that the county and the Gold Beach, we can start funding them. I mean, obviously some funds came for the court building because it's getting some kind of remodel. I don't think they're doing that for free. So I'm very concerned about the future of our county, the 3, you know, incorporated cities, but the whole things. But, you know, this is our future, and our children and grandchildren, they for sure are our future. So we have to protect them. But also seniors walking around, you know, it's getting pretty dangerous. If you don't believe me, walk around and stuff and see what's going on. So, I don't know, that's my nickel's worth of advice, and happy election season.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
Thank you.
all right. Jeremy, you want to speak?
Sorry, Lieutenant Crone, Jail Commander for Curry County. Unfortunately, news at the jail, I wasn't able to be here on time, so I wasn't able to put in a public comment for the school resource officers things. I'm a little perturbed, I guess would be the word, that there is conversations happening behind closed doors regarding the use of opiate money with other agencies. But every time I want to use it for things that are on Exhibit E, I have to come and make a presentation. And I have to come and explain myself and explain why I want to use it. But the city of Gold Beach didn't come make a presentation. The schools didn't make a presentation, but we're talking about giving them money. My 2 cents on it.
Jeremy,
1 second, if you wouldn't mind.
before you continue, we offered it to the sheriff's office for this purpose.
Which I will get to that. The reason the sheriff's office will not engage with that is because we have sent it to our colleagues who handle the opiate settlement funds and review it. And even this week, I sent the IGA to them, and they said you could not fund a full position based on that IGA through opiate money. They conservatively said 20% to fund it. So with that, be prepared for that to come up, that we're overfunding out of the opiate settlement funds, and there'll be an audit of it. If we do that, I will argue that I now run a MAP program in the jail. So my salary should come out of the opiate settlement funds. Our nurses administer those medications along with all the corrections deputies. Their salary should come out of those funds. And then we also screen every inmate that comes into the jail. Corrections deputies do that. We've handed out 26 doses of Narcan in the last 30 days. So all of our salary should come out of that. We just saved the general fund $1.2 million.
They're not even close in comparison, Jeremy.
Well,
Not even close.
that's
You have
one
You
opinion.
have an officer at a school teaching children about the dangers of opioid use. That falls within Measure E.
Okay. The other thing I will suggest is every quarter we do a Subs on the Coast meeting where the CBOs and other involved individuals with substance abuse and opiate use meet and we discuss problems in the community. I've been to those meetings. I actively participate in those meetings. Nobody on this board does. So I encourage you to come to those meetings and listen to what the community is asking for and not the parents at the school where there is money for an SRO. There are grants out there for this. You just have to go out and ask. So, on to what I'm here to talk about with what I put onto the agenda. I've reached out to a group that will come in and do telehealth appointments and provide treatment to individuals who are suffering from opiate use. They are going to bill us just like a doctor's office would, and where I'm asking for the money to be able to pay for those services so we can continue the work that we're doing in the jail through our MAP program.
Jeremy, how long did the opioid money sit idle?
It's at 2 years idle because Lieutenant Denny and Director Lang tried to get a drug and alcohol counselor to work for the county and use those monies to provide services to people suffering from opiate use, and we were unable to recruit it.
Were there any other options presented to use that opioid money?
I wasn't involved during that time.
Okay.
But for the last year and a half, I've been actively involved in it, and I have been working towards helping the people who are suffering from the use of opiates in the jail and in the community.
Okay. Discussion?
I don't have any.
Keena, are you still there?
I am.
Okay. Regarding Lieutenant Crone's request, where are we at funding wise? Should we move forward with the SRO, CRO position with Gold Beach? What does all of this look like? Is it possible to do? What's your assessment?
So, both options, both full Exhibit E's, Schedule B, Exhibit E, Schedule A of the opioid use, core strategies, G, prevention and programs. That's where your SRO would essentially fall within that
Right.
scope. And then in regards to Lieutenant Crohn's, he would fall in the Schedule B, which is treatment of opioid use and disorders. There is expand telehealth, telehealth to increase treatment of opioid uses and co-occurring conditions. And this is counseling, psychiatric support and such, through the telehealth model. So both of them are appropriate uses of the opioid fund. I do think with current funding, we would have enough to be able to support the SRO position. One thing we need to keep in mind definitely is opioid dollars are a settlement dollar, and it gets given over time. We did build up the use of it, or the amount of money that we have to keep in mind that as opioid prescriptions dwindle, those settlements are going to dwindle a little bit over time, not immediately, but in the future. But I do think we would have enough money to support your SRO position. And depending on, I'm not exactly familiar, and maybe Lieutenant Crone can give a little bit more information in regards to the proposal that he put out there of, do we have an estimate of what the costs are? Is it going to be similar to the process of EAP that we currently fund some portions of it out?
So the costs that the $36,000 will account for each telehealth appointment's $200, and that accounts for, that's 9 people per month for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Okay, so it is similar to like the EAP process that we're doing. So
correct.
It's kind of like a not to exceed type 36,000, or are you expecting that it potentially could go over that?
It potentially could go, if the need is there, then I will ask for more.
Okay.
Because otherwise it'll come out of the general fund.
Sure. So just so the commissioners are aware, there's different types of opioid settlement funding. We actually were just in part of a group settlement that took place, and there's also a state settlement that gives a portion as well. We also do get kickbacks from opioid manufacturers as they sell and make these opioids. We do, part of the law is we get a portion of that as well. So we don't know exactly how much that's going to be, like I said, being that it's based on the sale or the use or prescription of those opioids that are out there. But I do believe that we would be able to fund the SRO, and for a limited time, I think we could also do the jails portion as well, if that's something you're considering.
Okay.
I know one thing that we talked about when we were talking about this with Gold Beach was that down the road, it would be, if the program's successful, then the school might be, maybe the school has some funding available, but I know maybe it's not imperative for everybody, but it sure seemed to be an imperative a couple of weeks ago that action be taken.
Yeah.
People were actually at risk.
Yeah, and I think it's the prudent step, sometimes to get it going and then allow for the long-term livability of it to branch out for sure.
A lot, to his comment, a lot of the people that are in our jails aren't even necessarily residents of this area, but those parents that you asked us not to listen to actually live here.
Most of the people in the jail today are residents of Curry County or Delaware County.
Okay. Depending on how that's defined, certainly. There is, but with the homeless advocacy industry, certainly.
There are people that are released in Gold Beach and stay in Curry County.
Right. Yeah, I can pretty much guarantee the parents are residents of, the parents of the children in the schools are residents of Curry County, And I for one think that they should be, I think they should be a top priority in their concerns, but just me.
Right.
So what's the question at hand?
What would you like to do?
Well, I think what we learned from Keena is to make sure that we can fund it, on some level of long-term, you know? So I think Keena examines that, and if we can, we examine the, you know, the ability to do it.
Okay. So we'll wait to hear back from Gold Beach, then we'll reassess the exact amount of money we have and get a full report from Keena, and then we'll make a decision after that.
Can I also, ask that I assist in writing the portion of the contract in regards to, the billing and payments? Just because these would be, and note in there that they're a subrecipient of funds, and that's something that you guys are going to want to go forward with. Because as a subrecipient, we, do need to make sure that, we do some subrecipient audits, if that's the steps that you guys want to take.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep. All right. Any further discussion on this item?
No.
All right, then we'll move to C, which is cooperative agreement with USDA Wildlife Services.
All right, this agreement was entered into last year between USDA, APHIS, and Kruger. We've had this program on and off for years. It's generally used for different types of predator control, and of course, our county is primarily a timber county. One of the major services is provided by the federal government that's dealing with problem bears, with the tree damage that is done to the commercial forestry and government forestry going on here. Bears do an awful lot of damage during the year, but they also this group will respond to cougars, other problem. You know, when animals are identified that are a problem, they're professional.
Beavers, culverts.
Yeah.
So here's so on this, I've been weirdly involved in some of this, just with some people who have made some, they've had a problem with a cougar, you know. The only thing that I'd like to examine is this USDA contract is expensive.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and I'd like to see if we, apparently there is a local government trapper that we could potentially have an agreement with, at least to manage the beavers and culverts for us, potentially. And then they would be a resource that we could, when we get these calls for problem animals, they could be a resource that could be referred for the individuals, and then,
On a pay-by-case basis.
well, and a lot of times those will be private pay, because they're gonna be on, you know, private property scenarios where they're a problem. You know, and so I think, I don't know, I think this one's a lot of money, but it's just extremely important for our area.
Yeah, it's a very effective program. I just don't wanna underrate that beavers are a problem. Where there's a beaver up on Childers Road that fills up the culvert all the time, persists. I've asked for Via to ask him to move on. She drives by him every day. He's still there. He's still plugging up the culvert. So I'm not sure what we can do. But I do. I mean, the amount of bear damage that is done to, you know, the commercial forestry industry in this county, and it's learned behavior. So it's not instinctive behavior with bears. It's a thing that basically appeared in about the 60s and has been expanding across the West since. Bears teach other bears how to eat the bark off the trees, candy layer in the spring, and they can. So this bear control program is really effective at isolating those particular bears and addressing the problem that way. And I don't I just don't know that there's a solution that better fits it. We can certainly look into it and see. I don't know how that would, how this, you know, we have a lot of our timber, industrial forest land owners engage, they pay a
Yeah, they
cost
pay.
share for this as well. And so we participated to allow that program to go forward, but they're already paying into this themselves, so.
So let's look at that, at like what that offset looks like in terms of, you know,
Okay.
with the timber owners. And, you know, if we can make it kind of feasible, then yeah, if we can, I still think it'd be good to have some, you know, some identified person that the average you know.
Well, I think that'd be really, I think that would be a really great asset to have. That, you know, we used to have, years ago, a person would come for, there was this local guy in lived in several, but there was a guy named Zip that would show up and just, you know, if there was a problem animal, and really, you know, the most effective person that I've ever known in this was actually a guy from the USDA, and he could show up and identify the animal and take that particular animal out of the loop. It's just really efficient work, but he was so good they promoted him. He's probably running the place by now.
Yeah, so let's look further into it.
Yeah, I agree that need is absolutely there, but we're just so short of money, you know, and,
I'll get a comparison so that we can see what everybody's contributing and see what if there's a way that might make sense to kind of take it out of the USDA approach. Or maybe just isolate that with the
timber owners?
Timber owners.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
all right, any further discussion? No? All right, we'll move on to,
May I
D.
make a public comment for that?
Not right now.
No? Okay. Thank you.
We'll move on to, number D, which is financial audits, or Jay, that's the one that you added.
Yeah, so, so if you guys remember, I'm sure you do, it's been a whirlwind. We went into the 23-24 budget season, 2 fiscal years behind in the reconciliation of our county treasury. And so we went in fairly blind, not knowing exacts, right? And we, you know, ordered that reconciliation take place. Well, as it was taking place, and it took the better part of from June to almost April, when they got it caught up. May might have been actually the point where we were fully caught up through the, you know, for those 2 fiscal years.
Yeah.
So during that process, a lot of things we were able to identify a lot of things that were not healthy for our county accounting and treasury. I don't know if you guys remember, but because when we had discussed this, we were in the midst of budget, we were in the midst of levy, and then the budget was a scenario, and then we've come out of that, and now we're into this. So I think it's important not to lose track of that. And so what I'm asking for is some of the scenarios that occurred that we found just on the surface, that was found on the surface, mainly by, you know, Keena and Nick, you know, I was a part of some of that, where we had outstanding ACHs, that returns that are owed to other agencies. We were holding funds that were not ours. It could be a hardship to other districts, and a liability on our county books. There were large transfers of funds that were recorded in our financial system, but actual funds never got moved. When discovered, we no longer had the funds in the account to cover the transfer. Bank fees that hadn't been recorded in the fiscal system for 6 months. $66,000 in deposits not recorded in the fiscal system. 3.7 million transferred to accounts other than those recorded in the fiscal system. We had overdraft charges to the county bank account that rolled over for 11 months. We had $601,180.32 in deposits that weren't recorded in the fiscal system up to 3 months. We were obviously behind in our reconciliation by 2 years. We had over $32 million in bank adjustments during that time period. So there's not to mention, there's still issues, we're still dealing with issues of getting the right amounts paid out to the districts, right? So when the county treasury, the money comes into the county treasury, right? And the treasurer is in charge of making sure that each district is paid accordingly per the percentage of tax base recorded at the clerk's office. And there's been a lot. In fact, the Winchuck Fire Department board had reached out and said on multiple occasions they received the wrong amounts. I know the schools have received the wrong amounts.
Big wrong amounts.
And I'm gonna stop you for just a second so there's no confusion. What you're talking about is not what's happening now, it's what has happened in the past that's being corrected now.
Right, this was basically everything April of '24 to previous.
Right.
I think from April of '24 going forward,
We're
I
good.
think we have been doing it correctly, but the one thing we.
Well, actually, at 11 of 23, we instituted new fiscal policies.
Correct.
And it was actually from that time that although we had, the treasurer was not in favor of the fiscal policies, you did put them in place, and it took about 6 months to get the heads above water at that point, because you needed, once they were in place, and once there were fiscal controls on how money was handled and where it was going, how it was deposited on a daily basis, that allowed us to finally get
it under
hold of it.
control.
But just to be really clear, that in the budget season of '23, when you guys and I were basically just here, this was ongoing, and this was before Keena and Nick. But we were aware of it, and we that's when we started working on it. It took a long
Correct.
time, and we were told that it wasn't a big deal until I made it a big deal. But I think $32 million in bank adjustments by itself is a huge deal.
Well, and so what I'm getting at is, if this is what we learned just by, trying to reconcile the books and get the books right and get everything, on page for this upcoming budget, so we knew what we were working with, I think we owe it to, ourselves and the taxing districts that were within Curry County that we're responsible ensuring the correct payments are for, to examine having a forensic audit done on, and starting on our, starting there. Just to make sure that, because, there's a lot of small districts, and they may have not noticed if they got the wrong amounts, but it's still our obligation to ensure that they did.
But it's also a huge, it's a giant amount of time to ask our current finance department that's working to do their everyday
No, for sure.
duties to get there. I mean, for
Well,
example, I'm gonna give you one example that we discovered in early 2023. The Treasury Department had sent money that should have gone to, I believe it was Coos Forest Patrol for wildland fire protection, something in the amount of $300 and some thousand. That had not been sent to them, but it had instead been sent to the mobile home ombudsman for the state of Oregon.
Right.
That was just one. That was just one. But, so, my office addressed that, and we cajoled and got them. They obviously weren't that excited about giving $300,000 back because they're floating it, but they gave it back, and we got it back to the right place. And then we went on with our lives, but then the Treasurer's Department repeated the mistake in the last year as well, so,
Yeah.
right again. So I don't know how many of those, the only way to really do that is to go line by line through each one of these, everything, and determine if the money was gonna be, has it been distributed right? Because a lot of these little, these little fire departments and so forth, they need every cent they can get.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I guess what I'm asking is two things, that we examine, maybe we do an RFQ or something of that nature to see if we can, what a forensic audit would cost, right? Because I think we need to know that first, but I wanted to have the discussion to see if it was something that you guys, if you even, it would entertain the idea.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think that what we need to do to ensure and prevent this from occurring in the future is, we have audits. The state comes and audits. And so what they're auditing is that essentially our procedures are following, that we're following our accounting procedures. They're not dialing down to see if the right dollars were sent left, right, and center. Just if you're, and so we were way out of compliance with the procedures as well over the last two fiscal audits, and to the tone that ODOT was threatening to revoke our.
It wasn't the last two fiscal audits, it was many more than that.
Right, but I've only been here for two.
Right.
So that's the only two that I know of, but they were going to revoke our ODOT money that funds our road department if, because of the last failed audit, if measures weren't taken immediately, which we took in November with the help of Kina, and a lot of that was on our cash receipting. And so I think what I'd like to examine is an order in the future, a board order that says that we will budget for a forensic audit on a 3-year rotating basis to ensure that there's transparency to the public, but also that we're doing it correctly for our county and our districts.
We make the same mistakes that have been made over the past several years, we'll be bankrupt. For sure. So we can't afford to do that again.
Well,
And-
no, we have to put in the safeguards
Right,
to make sure that.
That's my point. But the other thing is, which is why I support what you're saying, I support what you're saying also because we are going to have to put funding options forward to the people to make decisions about, like we did with the past levy.
Mhm.
And the more transparent information that they have, the better decisions they can make. And that's why I would support what you're talking about.
Well, I think, is this something that Kina can try to do and get an RFQ or?
Yeah, we can put something together.
And see, because it may be wildly expensive that we,
It may not even be possible.
I would think that a small county, if we did a 2 to 3 year look back to ensure that, where we are for the last, and we can also identify mistakes that we may not have been able to identify in that first look to ensure they're prevented going forward.
Yeah.
Because if we make the mistake, if we don't learn from it and make the change.
But
there's no-
also, if we've wrongly allocated, if we have not delivered the correct amount of money to these various special districts that we're required to do by law, then eventually, at some point, we'll be answering for that. So we'll have to make
Well-
good, and it'll cost us. I think it's money well spent to determine, to get it right. We have several years of cleanup. We did not have competent people in charge of our finances. And it resulted in monies being distributed incorrectly, and we have recovered some of those, and we have not recovered all of them.
Correct. Kina, is that something you can look into?
Absolutely. I definitely can do that. And also, There's in-house check and balance processes that we can set up also. They're fairly easy to double check what we're bringing in and what is going out. And I've been working with the treasurer closely where we have needs to go over different things, we're changing processes and procedure in order to make sure that we don't overlook things. And we also are making it so that not just one person, the treasurer's responsibility is, to send out these monies to special districts, other taxing agencies, and he shouldn't be the only person to look at that. Everybody needs a double check, not to find wrongdoings, but we're all human and we make mistakes. So we can also put in place those double checks, so there's always a second set of eyes looking at everything.
Yeah, and I want to assure for the public that's watching, if you've watched the budget process leading up to this point, we discovered a lot of past mistakes, errors. I can tell you, being on the budget committee, some of them were shocking to find out that the information I had 3 years ago was not correct. And since we've learned that, as we move forward, we have put different people in place, and we have different procedures and protocols in place to prevent that from ever happening again and to minimize anything as we move forward. So things are extremely different today than they were as we were encountering this. But I agree with you in another layer of protection.
Yeah, okay, well,
But also, as part of that, as you go forward, if you do an audit, you can get recommendations from that outside organization that can, if you get a fresh look from outside, they bring in other ideas, like we had a comment regarding our outside consultant that came in. Well, if you recall, the departments that cooperated, that were open and let that outside efficiency consultant come in, all benefited. And it was a good thing. Now, the departments that chose to not cooperate or allow that outside set of eyes are still operating the same way that they were prior to our attempt to bring, outside expertise. There are so many people out there in the world that are really good at this stuff, at every aspect of running a place like this, and you just have to be open to letting them take a look at your processes, and they've always got new ideas, and they're almost always, an improvement, otherwise they won't say it. So I just wanna, as we go forward, when you bring an auditor in, that's the whole idea of an audit. They give you recommendations. They look at what you did and they're like, you know what? You're doing this, but I would recommend that we have this separate oversight. Like, for example, right now, when there's a claim that comes in, the department head has to review it. Then it goes to finance. I'm out of that loop now, but for a long time, I was having to review every individual claim that came in, and it's hard. And it's time consuming, and it's actually the only way you can get an idea of how a place like this runs is actually look at each expense, read it, and get to understand what that is. Then you can start to see how things flow. But that really wasn't being done until we kind of put our noses to the grind. So it hadn't been done for years. We found out that we were paying things. That's where we found out that we were paying the electric bill at the fairgrounds with TLT funds, which is against the law. That had been going on for a long time, but you have to actually sit there and look until your eyes hurt, there's a lot of more fun things to do than go over expenditures. But that was a recommendation that we took to actually apply those, better practices, and it's really paid off.
All right.
Geez, Taylor, they'll enjoy going invoice by invoice.
Yep.
I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, you would think it was fun, Keno.
Any further discussion on that yet?
no.
All right, we'll move forward in the agenda to item 7, which is a public safety update. And there is no one here from the sheriff's office, so we're not able to provide that update to the public. So we'll go next to number 8, which is Director of County Operations update.
Just a few things to tell you about. We've got, if you recall, the food bank grant that we got involved in a couple of years ago. We're working. We've got new administration. We've been sort of left with the way that it had been set up. It wasn't acceptable to Business Oregon, and so we've got a new administrator picked out and contracted with, and we're working on getting that approved by Business Oregon so we can move forward and get that finished up. Let's see. We had a break-in at the road department. Somebody stole a fuel card out of one of the vehicles, and we didn't find out about it for a couple of weeks, I think, till it finally showed up, and they stole several thousand dollars worth of fuel. They went between the 2 stations in Brookings and Gold Beach, and the investigation is ongoing. And I will say that was, I believe it's OSP that's doing the investigation. Who's?
Gold Beach Police.
Oh, Gold Beach PD, that's who it is, okay, yeah. And so I'm pretty confident that we're gonna get, we're gonna be able to get.
So basically, they broke into one of our vehicles and took a car.
Right, so now, as we got looking at that, we have Carrie out at the road department who has developed this sort of missionary zeal regarding some of these issues, and she kind of took that really personally, and she was working with Keena, and they are developing a different approach to our cards, so that the cards are gonna be tied to individual employees and also individual vehicles, but and the vehicles are gonna be limited, because like right now, whoever's doing this is going to like basically filling up 50-gallon drums in the middle of the night. So there's gonna be a limit on the daily use per vehicle, depending on which that vehicle is. Anyway, just tighter controls, and I'm proud to say that they just sort of took that and are addressing that problem like they own it. And I really appreciate that. Let's see. Also, I just learned that we're coordinating. The county parks department is going to be coordinating with state parks on the state's park master plan. I just heard that today, so as far as I know, we're just going to go forward with that. That's really about all I have right now.
Okay. All right, we'll move to elected official updates. Commissioner Lloyd Collinger is here. Would you like to say anything, Patrick?
Sure. In regards to Jay's statement regarding the forensic audits and doing those on a 2 or 3 year basis, it is a very good idea, and it is that extra protection that we can use for accountability reasons, but also is that tool we need. If we do have to go at some point and ask the public for money. And then Lynn brought to my attention too, which I thought was a pretty good idea as well, is the other various larger county tax districts would also be protected through that audit process, and we should invite them to help pay for the audit as well and contribute to that. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And in regards to the SRO position, I am in favor for that. I just, so you guys know, that I would, if I was sitting in that chair, I'd be on the same side with you guys on that as well. And I think it's important to get ahead and get in front of the kids while they're young and impressionable, and teach them the right path at a young age, so that by the time they are older, they can know the dangers and the risks involved with opioids and other drugs. And but then also, it's nice for the schools, the staffing as well, and to be able to help facilitate proper trainings in emergency situations of various types, and also help close up any loopholes in policies within the school districts as well during times of crisis. And I think that role is very important, and I do know that, speaking on behalf of the Gold Beach Central Curry School District, that they're very excited to have that opportunity of an extra person to help with that. So that's the only comments I have.
All right, thank you. Commissioner updates, Jay?
I just wanted to give a quick update. Yesterday, I went to Coos. Well, first off, do a quick, the AOC District 4 meeting was, you were in attendance.
Yeah.
I think it was, I think it was good. It was beneficial. I think it was a lot of good discussion. A lot of the discussion revolved around smaller counties and cities, municipalities, etc., needing to be nimble, think outside the box. You know, the kind of the traditional way of things getting done is faltering in a lot of areas. We're not unique in that. We're facing very similar challenges. I will say the greatest common denominator in those who are facing the greatest challenges are those that used COVID dollars for operations and not infrastructure, because when the COVID dollars ran dry, they no longer could continue to run those operations, which put them in bad scenarios. We were one of those who were using COVID funds for operations. And so, you know, discussing, you know, small ideas like a shared resource for a grant administrator between Coos and Curry, you know, two smaller counties that may not need one dedicated grant administrator, but sharing resources. And then, you know, what kind of, where does that go? Like what can we examine in terms of shared resources? You know, and it trickles with the municipalities as well. I mean, and I mean the state is an interesting scenario. On one hand, the state is saying, you know, we have these dedicated, allocated hundreds of millions of dollars of funds dedicated to homeless, private, nonprofit NGOs. And in the other hand, they're saying, but we're going to have to raise the gas tax because ODOT has no money, right? And so,
and we'll have to take money from the counties because ODOT has no money.
Well, that was their first attempt, was to reduce the county's allocation of road funds to supplement their loss at ODOT. And so, you know, I just think we can get ahead of it. Maybe we can actually lead the way for a lot of small counties in creating. One of the discussion was, you know, kind of like a Southern Oregon County coalition where we look at what we can share in terms of resources, and try to cut some expenses or share expenses. So that was really good discussion, I felt, you know, and the fact that the Coos County Commissioners were also, you know, they're up against the wall as well. They're going out for another funding measure. And I hope they can get going, but regardless, I think these are all beneficial discussions.
Yeah, and it's good, you know, AOC is really good. They were open to facilitating that for us, you know, that Southern Oregon regional type look. I know, I talked to Gina afterwards, and AOC will play a helpful role in that for sure.
So one of the immediate benefits that came out of that was, afterwards, Commissioner Bob Main, said, hey, have you guys talked to Ray Bushiger? And I was like, I don't know who that is. Anyways, he is an advocate for all of the ports in Oregon. In DC, he also works with Coos and advocates at the federal level for dollars for certain projects. Some of the things he's able to get for Coos were, so anyways, he said, I'm happy to meeting him yesterday for their annual discussion, and you're more than welcome to join. So I drove up there yesterday and met with them. And, you know, they're getting, oh gosh, it's like $3 million in the port for infrastructure. They got $600,000 in the sheriff and DA's office to digitize all their records. He got numerous things. You know, it costs the Coos County, it's a $5,000 annual retainer for his services. And because he's always working with the ports, he knows our coast. He understands that a lot of our problems are very similar, you know, so when he goes to lobbies for somebody to attach Coos County to a bill to get some funding for a scenario, it would be pretty easy to attach Curry to that as well. And
I've worked with him before, and he's very effective with the ports. And he can do, that is just a great group.
well, I think
Really
he's
good.
part of the reason why we got dredging
Right.
back here.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I was learning all this. Anyway, so I want to have a discussion about, you know, I got a call set up next Thursday.
Yeah, return on investment there would be pretty good.
Well, the thing is we're a long ways from Salem. It's hard for us to get up to advocate for ourselves in Salem. We're extremely we're about as far away from DC as you get. And so I think it's a small investment that, like you said, it could have incredible returns. And we can, you know, anyways, I think we need to examine it.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Sure.
That's it.
You usually come back.
If something hits me,
All right. Okay, so I have a couple things.
oh, yes.
How about that? Surprise.
So interestingly enough, what I learned is that Coos actually uses their TLT funds to pay Ray because he's improving the economy by providing these different avenues. So that was their funding mechanism, which for us, we know is restricted funds, and we have access to those restricted funds, and so small investment in TLT dollars. Sorry, that's it.
All right. All right, so I'm going to address a couple things. I do want to talk about public comments that we have at every meeting. I support and encourage public comments. We will always have public comments. But anybody can step up to the podium and say anything. And there's no verifying of information, there's no fact checking, there's none of that. You can just get up and say things. So when the public watches these meetings, just keep that in mind. And if you have a question about a comment that's made, or you have a question about a statement that's made, just ask us, email us, call us, and we'll give you the information.
On that topic, I just want to clarify that regarding some of the false information that was put forward regarding transparency earlier, the monthly expense of everything over $500 is posted right on the other side of this wall on the board.
I know.
So
I know.
I just wanted to tell the public that's the facts.
It is, and that's the point that I want to make, right? It's like you can get up there and you can say, you know, this information isn't available, it's not present, or you know, this wasn't true, or this, you know, this didn't happen. Just ask us, just email us, call us, and come and meet with us. I wish more people would come and meet with us, but just when you hear the public comments, keep in mind, verify the information. Now, moving on, probably the biggest calls, the the largest amount of calls I get during the week are about law enforcement, sheriff's office funding, that kind of stuff. But pretty close to that is the planning department. I get a lot of calls from the planning department. And I just want to let people know that I talked to earlier this week, and some of the folks that are following that issue closely as well. We were able to hire somebody in the planning department. It's part-time, but we filled it. My understanding is that they accepted it today. We're going through the process, and we should get that filled quickly. So that is great. Jay, I think you were on that interview, actually.
It was.
And so, thank you to, I won't name names, but thank you who accepted, and can't wait to have you, and I hope you hit the ground running. The next thing I want to cover is we have an event coming up at the fairgrounds, the haunted house. Man, Terry has been killing it over there. She has been just being extremely creative, and the volunteers over there that have been helping her, just building this whole thing up. I think it's going to be really cool, and just start an annual thing there that we've talked about for a while. So, but it's really neat to see the community involvement and see that taking off. And that's going to be from the 25th through the 31st is when that's going to be going on. And also, Natasha has been working hard on our website, and we have made some modifications to our website. It's easier to navigate, it's easier to find information. There is a calendar on a drop menu there. You can click on that, and in fact, if you go to that today, you can click on that. It'll have our meetings on there, but it'll also have the haunted house dates on there, and then you can click on that and get more information. So it just benefits the community a lot. That was something that came up when we at our town halls and the levy was the lack of computer-friendly website we had, so or user-friendly, I should say. So thank you, Natasha, and everyone else that helped, but that's available for the public right now. So access it, take a look at it. That's all I have. Now we will move forward in the agenda. We do have an executive session today, so we will be moving into executive session now, and I will have to ask everybody to leave, and we'll secure everything and move forward.
Yes. Thank you. Could I have your name, please?